Okay, so as you all heard, this actually is being recorded as well. So the recording is going to make its way into a virtual wellness platform that you will all have access to. I'll give you a QR code at the end of our time. And it was also in a link in the document that Beth had sent out prior to starting today as well. So you'll have a couple different places where you're able to access this. It's not required that you access this. This is literally here for your support. So if you choose to, when you log in with your email and your own unique password that you choose, this is going to be what it looks like when you enter. Excuse me, you'll see a welcome message with a short video on how to navigate the area and what you can expect from using this. But there's this section right here that is a space designed for the resources for this series. So, excuse me, right in the beginning, you'll find that there is a welcome message from me, and then a few other steps that I'll ask you to review if you do choose to engage this. This is a statement from BGSU on the grant funding that we ask that you acknowledge as well. I'm just going to move here we go. And then I want to take just a couple of moments on the agreements for our interactions in this space. And you'll have access to this on your own. I'm not going to read the entire document, but this is basically some of the agreements that we'll look to adhere to as we join. So in our time together, I will look to provide some new information. So hopefully you'll have new concepts coming your way. I'll look to provide some or engage you in new experiences. So as we practice, hopefully you'll have some new experiences. And then as we do, I'll also look to engage you in reflection and feedback, questions. So there's a great deal of interaction that's available for us. Having said that, I want you to know that no one is really required to speak. This time is set up for your support, for your learning, however you feel supported and secure in your learning. That's what I want you to go with. So if that means sharing out when space is made available, do that. If it is not, you will never be required to speak out. The two big things I would probably want you to take from the agreements for community interactions is number one, confidentiality. So if we do have shares in our space, just agreeing that what is said in this group stays in this group. You might come across new experiences or reflections that cause you to maybe share what that personal experience is. So just agreeing that anything shared stays within the group of people who are here in this community. And then again, I've already pointed to this, but the right to pass. So if I call for reflection and you don't have anything to say or anything that you wish to speak, outward to the group, you certainly have the right to pass. We will have time in our 4 gatherings for breakout sessions where we'll have just a question and you'll have an opportunity to engage with peers and other people in this group. So I will ask that you consider at least participating in the breakouts if that feels right for you. Excuse me. Any questions, thoughts, questions, or reflection on our agreements for interactions? Okay. So I will move out of this. And we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but you do have a series outlined, so you know what you can expect. Beth has sent this out as well. This is going to be in our community space here. It gives us content breakdown on what we're doing each week. It gives our trauma-sensitive discussion topic, and it also gives the topic that we'll look at for new skills in the classroom as well. I do want to name that at the end of every live engagement that we have, I will remain available after our 5:30 mark for anybody that has any thing that you may wish to discuss with me directly. And if you do wish to connect, but after 5:30 is not good for you, my contact information is here in this document. You may reach me through email. You may reach me through my direct cell phone number. By that, I mean a direct phone call or text is fine with me. So just identify that you're in this group, and I respond as quickly as I can when I hear from any participants. And then, excuse me, if you do have this document, but you maybe haven't reviewed it yet or haven't had an opportunity to spend time in it, right here is the link to be able to join this space for your resources. And what you'll also find in this space is that our content slide deck is in here too. So here's the deal on how I'm going to facilitate. I'm not going to ask you to watch our slides. I am going to provide you with all of the key concepts from our time together in this slide deck in that space. So you will have all of those key concepts. So if you want to, kind of sit back, relax, and enjoy and take it in, you may do that. If you learn better by taking notes, I know that's me. I'm definitely a writer, and I look to kind of review, and my brain kind of processes a little bit better as I'm writing. Of course, you're welcome to do that. Just know that you will have the key concepts that we cover here in a slide deck each week in this space. So, and then the next thing that is available in the space, and actually these next settings are set to open up at 5:30. These are supplemental resources for you to be able to practice with on your own. So we have a grounding practice that's going to be here and available for you to work with. Also, breath as an anchor practice to work with, additional reading material to support our learning. And I'm going to move, I hope, bear with me. Okay. Move all the faces over to the right so that I can come down and show you here. We have additional resources for you, which is really a very large library of guided meditations. We also have a series, 25 days of meditation, with a lot of different practices in there. And then podcasts and short talks. These are all wellness-oriented talks. So all of these things are here to support you in exploring meditation for wellness and being able to work with practices on your own if and when you want to. Okay. I think I'm good in the screen here. So I'm going to stop share. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions before we jump into just a little bit of content? Oh, thank you. Very good. Good, good, good. Okay. Okay, so I know that Beth is keeping a close eye on chat. So if there is something that pops up and anybody has a question and I may miss it, I know that between me and Beth, we should get it. We should get it. So please feel free, excuse me, to either write in chat or speak out if there is something that comes up. So I want to begin with a little bit of context on how I got into my practice. There is relevance in it. It was somewhere around 2008. I was working in a family business. I was married and raising two kids. I still am married and now nourishing, supporting, loving two adult kids. But my point is, at the time, everything from the outside looking on probably looked just fine, maybe even maybe even organized or successful by whatever way you may define success. But what was actually going on the inside was a great deal of judgment, resentment, judgment, worry, doubt, fear, judgment, if you get the drift. And what I knew was there had to be another way. There had to be another way of being with myself and my own experiences. And there had to be another way of being in relationship. So by relationship, I mean those up close and personal relationships that we might call important. And even those passerby relationships, like the lady at the checkout in front of me taking too long or the person driving in front of me. And this knowing sent me seeking. I'll leave that part short. The seeking led me to a body of work that didn't explicitly say this is going to teach you meditation, but what it did was it invited me once a day, every day, to sit down, let my eyes close, and consider this. And it would give me a contemplative topic. In the beginning, guys, excuse me, this was for 1 minute at a time. And then over the course of a week or two, it became 3 minutes and then 5 minutes. And then over time, it organically grew into 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and so on. And there was a point where I kind of acknowledged, well, this is meditation. And I really didn't have anybody that I was talking to about this. There wasn't a lot of community around it. So I was a little bit of a closet meditator. I would get up very, very early in the morning, 5 a.m. before, any of the other humans in my world or in my home needed me. I would do my practice and then I would just kind of reemerge when the house started to wake up and get busy and lunches needed packed and all of that good stuff. And then it was sometime after that, maybe weeks, I don't know the exact timeline, that I began to make the direct correlation between my meditation practice and every area, every aspect, every relationship in my life doing a complete 180. And I'm not being dramatic or overstating right now. It literally impacted every area, every aspect of my life. And then it was sometime after that that I thought, well, why didn't I have this as a kid? Why didn't I have this in my youth? I did my teenage years a little messy. College wasn't much different. I finished, I made it, I'm here. But it wasn't comfortable. And that discomfort, I definitely remember starting as early as like seventh, eighth grade. I don't know if I have any seventh and eighth grade teachers in here or not, but I just think that time of life. Whew. And then I thought, well, maybe there were places teaching these skills to students, but Northwest Ohio hadn't caught up yet, right? Sometimes they're a little bit late in the game on some things. Things tend to start off over in, the West Coast and make their way this way. And I did find that that was exactly the case. I found at the time that there were two main organizations, two primary organizations that were training educators and outside providers to be able to safely and skillfully deliver mindfulness curriculum to K-12 youth. And this is where my formal study really got probably serious in the topics that were in here. So I became very, very interested in, like I said, where the efficacy was coming from. This is where all of the study in neuroscience came to. I do feel like my job right now is to make sure that I keep that a very practical, tangible way to connect to that information. And again, my goal is also going to be to encourage and get you interested in considering your own personal practice. So I won't get into what my formal study entails. That's available to you within my profile information. But just know that the practice came first for me. I've had the felt experience, the changes, the transformation that comes from that. And then the study behind it became very natural, very organic for me to lean into. And that's what we're here to kind of explore together in our time. Any question about how we came to the material or any of the things that I've shared or anything that feels relatable even? I facilitate meditation for a living, so I can wait that out pretty good, you guys. Okay, so I would like to share the definition of mindfulness meditation that we will work with for the context of our time. And something I want to kind of get out in front of too here is there are many different types of meditation. I'm not saying this is the only kind or only do this kind or this is the best kind. I'm saying there's a great deal of efficacy in what we'll be exploring together in our time here. And everything that we're doing is secular in nature, meaning there's no religion, there's no dogma, there's no doctrine. Everything that we're looking at is based in neuroscience. And this, of course, is what permits me to be able to bring this into workplace settings, schools, other organizations. So again, it's all based in neuroscience. So here's the definition that we're going to work with of meditation mindfulness. The awareness that comes from paying attention in the present moment on purpose, non-judgmentally. The awareness that comes from paying attention in the present moment on purpose and to the extent that we can, suspending our judgment, non-judgmentally. So it's about 4:25 in the afternoon on this fine Monday. Who in our space has judged themselves or someone else at least once today? Yeah. I'll tell you what, if you don't have your camera on, but your hand isn't up, show me your face. No, you don't have to, but yeah, so we're just really cracking open this piece of the definition, the awareness that comes from paying attention in the present moment on purpose, non-judgmentally, and this piece of non-judgment is significant because judgment in and of itself is a stressor. So it's one thing to make an observation, maybe there's a little judgment in it, let it go by. It's a completely different thing if we have an interaction, we have a judgment, we keep thinking about that judgment, we penetrate that judgment, we call our mother and we talk about that judgment. And when our mother's type, maybe we're going to pick up the phone, call a girlfriend, she'll listen to our judgment and that grievance. And then that judgment kind of lives with us. Or we might be willing to pass on that judgment and then the brain out of habit goes on to the next piece of judgment. So judgment in and of itself puts a tax and a toll on the nervous system that the nervous system is not intended to carry for long periods of time. Who's with me? So if you're on screen or you have your, yeah. So really just noticing this piece of non-judgment as a part of the definition. And keeping in mind that we're really in the beginning, just asking for this to suspend the judgment for practice. If we can suspend it in our own personal practice over time, that habit will become easier to take out into the world. We'll talk more about that in just a bit. The other piece of the definition that I want to open up is this term present moment. The awareness that comes from paying attention in the present moment on purpose, non-judgmentally. And present moment gets a lot of airtime in this work, mindfulness meditation in this area, but it gets the airtime that it gets because of the weight that it actually carries. The present moment is the only place that the nervous system can be at any given time. So anytime we're thinking too much about the past, it induces depression. And we know through science too that anytime we're thinking or worried too much about the future, it induces, I saw two people mouth it, Kim was one of them, it induces anxiety. Yeah,
Anxiety.
that's right, Hannah. And the only place that our nervous system can reconcile is when we are willing to be with it in the present moment on purpose. And this can take some discipline. Like to be here now, we're kind of thinking, yeah, I'm in the present moment. So we're actually literally talking about our thought form right now. So it's a matter of thinking about the past, thinking about the future too much. Now, I want to make, one point of clarification. If you are joining with a friend and going down memory lane and talking about good times and things you've done in the past and it's joyful and it feels good and there's upliftment, keep going. That's not the kind of thinking about the past that I'm talking about. Likewise, if you are in inspired thought and you're planning for something in the future and the creative juices are flowing, or you're in connection and it feels good to dream and feel alive and it feels good in the body and there's joy, keep going. That's not the type of thinking about the future that I'm talking about. And I think all of us know right now that there is more depression and anxiety being named now explicitly than ever before. And I think that we are seeing this both within ourselves and the students that we serve, the youth that we serve. And it can sometimes feel a little helpless. And so I feel very encouraged by the practices that we'll be working with on um, really understanding why they're supportive and why over time they have long range benefit. And so this work very much addresses mental health and wellness, but it's far more than mental health. And we'll learn this throughout the series as to why, but it greatly impacts our mental and our physical, social, and emotional health and well-being. So again, intellectual understanding, cool, not enough. It's the physical experience that begins to make those changes within the brain and within the nervous system. And so with that, I'll look to invite us into our first practice. But before I do, any questions about the definition that we're working with or anything that's been shared so far? The awareness that comes from paying attention in the present moment, on purpose, non-judgmentally. My husband has taken issue with non-judgmentally. He says, Rachel, that feels like way too much for me to get my head around. What are you talking about? So I have switched it with him. And if it's supportive here in this space too, to with loving awareness, the awareness that comes from paying attention in the present moment on purpose with loving awareness. So just being able to notice, suspending that judgment just for our practice, noticing with our loving attention that which we're holding our attention to. Yeah. Okay. So if there aren't any questions right now, I do want to invite us into our first practice. This practice is called a grounding practice. There are many different ways to do a grounding practice. This one will be about 3 minutes, give or take. I want you to know that every time I guide a practice, I start the practice formally so that you know that we're beginning. I end the practice formally so that you know that we're complete. I will include a very short period of silence in the middle. That's on purpose. I'm not going anywhere. And I will invite you to consider letting your eyes close if it feels right for you. Really, the biggest thing I want to encourage every time we join for a practice is exploring for yourself what feels supportive, what feels right for you. And so if closing your eyes feels right and you're in an environment where you feel safe and contained, then that's great. If you don't have the ideal environment for that and you'd rather just downcast your gaze, that's fine too. If you engage this practice with a sincere heart, you will have done our meditation. So I didn't ask in the beginning, and normally I do, if I have any practitioners in the room or do I have any practitioners, anybody that practices on a regular basis? Has anybody tried to meditate, but it quote didn't work for them? Anybody feel that there are benefits to meditation? You just don't have a skillful way to begin yet? Okay. Okay, very good. Hopefully we'll be answering to all of these scenarios. Okay, so um, to begin, I'm going to invite you to get into a comfortable position, sitting upright yet relaxed, if that's available to you. Right next to no experience. Okay. Occasionally, but not enough. Self Reiki for summer. Love that. Tried a few times. Okay, here's what I can guarantee you. By the end of our 4 sessions in these 8 weeks, if you engage with a sincere heart and you do the little tiny bit of homework I'm going to give you, listen, it's not required, but I am going to ask you to consider 3 minutes of homework a day. If you do this by the end of our 8 weeks together, I can promise you, you will have a skillful meditation practice. Okay. Yeah. Okay, Emily, who relates? I tried, but I got bored, she says. I get it. I get it. Yeah, lots of health benefits to meditation. Okay, very good. Yes, and we'll be exploring those in our time together throughout this series for sure. Okay, so getting into a comfortable position, sitting upright yet relaxed. And even as we take that upright posture, this signals to the nervous system that we're here for a practice. So we get a new sense of alertness, a new focus just by taking that upright posture on purpose. And I'll invite you to let your eyes close if that feels right for you. And if not, you may simply downcast your gaze. And to begin, inviting your awareness to discover the breath. And as we do, we're just looking to discover the breath as it is right now. So we're not looking to change it or manipulate it in any way. We're just being present to the breath. And inviting attention now to drop to the sit bones. And just feeling the pressure points between the sit bones and the seat or the ground that's supporting you. And maybe even allowing ourselves to sink a bit heavier into the sit bones. Inviting relaxation in the belly, allowing the muscles in the belly to relax. Allowing the legs to let go and relax. Just sinking a bit heavier into the sit bones. And inviting attention now to drop one more time to the bottom of the feet. And just scanning for any physical sensation we can detect in the bottom of the feet. And if none's available, maybe giving the feet a twist or a press into the ground, if that's available, or wiggling toes. Just scanning for any physical sensation in the bottom of the feet. And inviting attention now back up to the breath as we look to bring the practice to a close. Together, we'll follow one natural cycle of the breath, finding the beginning of the in-breath to the end of the in-breath, and the beginning of the out-breath to the end of the out-breath. And as we feel ready, Beginning to blink eyes and bring awareness back into our environment. And as we do, connecting awareness to the sit bones with eyes open. So we practice the quality of awareness with eyes open as well. Thank you for your practice. Practice was about 4 minutes, 3.5 to 4 minutes. Any reflection on the practice?
For me, I think it's good having you kind of guide us through it. When I have tried it a few times, I've used an app where it kind of, directs you because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. And we'll talk a little bit more today about what we're doing, why we're doing it. And by the time our time is over today, you will have some very basic, able to sit down and begin your own practice each day if you wish to. Mm-hmm. Megan shares.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I relate a lot to what was just said. When I have someone that is like guiding me and doing it, I feel like I really feel it sensationally and I can feel my mind calming down. But then trying to do it myself, it's never the same for me trying to do it myself.
Yeah. Yep. Who relates? Who relates right now to Jen and Hannah? You can put, yeah, give me a thumbs up or a hand in the air. Yeah. Yeah. Not uncommon. Yeah. Very good. Jaden, I respect where you're at right now for sure. There's a child. And so noticing how we're relating basically is what we do when the environment doesn't feel perfect for practice. Okay, agree. Assistant helps. Didn't feel like 3 minutes. It was quick. Okay, very good. Didn't feel like 3 or 4. Did it feel quick for anyone else? In general, it went by a little quicker than okay, very good. Noticing little noises I had not heard before. And I think I missed one that's already up top. Did anybody have, so was there a calming effect for anyone? You can either nod or put your okay. Did anyone have an adverse effect, meaning it wasn't calming, it was maybe more agitating, more irritating? Space for that. Is Jen saying yes to that? Oh, yeah. Okay, you win. Kim, you win. Sitting on a bench at the river. The winner is Kim. Okay, yes, at first it was hard to close my eyes, and then my eyes were actually really relaxed at the end. Okay, yes to the first question. There was a calming effect. Oh, look at this. Thank you. You're even going to share it for us. That is so lovely. Yeah, something about nature. It's not for this series, but woo. So this is what I want to say. If anybody did have um something other than a calming effect, but you're not, you haven't spoken out, and that's just fine. I just want to share that you're not broken. It doesn't mean that you cannot meditate. It might be that the practice that I selected itself was not soothing, or maybe my voice was irritating to you, or maybe it's very hard in a group online to actually connect to the practice and feel like you have the opportunity to settle. There are a lot of different reasons that could be the case if that was not supportive or a soothing practice. Again, what I encourage you to do is just notice what does feel supportive. Note that even if you were able to find the breath and connect to that and it didn't cause too much activation in your system to try and find the breath. Sometimes I have teachers report, oh my gosh, all I could think of is, am I doing it right with the breath? So if you could find the breath and that was simple, if you could find the sit bones and that was simple, if you could detect sensation in your feet and that was simple, these are 3 anchors that I just invited our attention to. And we'll be looking to build a repertoire of these anchors for us to practice with over time. And so if breath isn't supportive, toss that out for a month or two. You can return to it anytime. But if it is supportive, put it in your kind of list of anchors to practice with. Does this make sense? Okay, really good. Really good. Any other reflection or question on the practice? Oh, bottom of the feet, Alicia. So just feeling, the question is sit bones, and what was the third? It was detecting physical sensation in the bottom of the feet. So if your feet were connected to the ground, sometimes we can feel it. If not, just twisting feet into the ground. If you were sitting with your legs crossed, just noticing where your feet are connected to the ground. Maybe it's not the bottom, maybe it's the sides. Hannah with an H, I'm so glad that by the end, that short practice. So I love that in short order, it could go from this feels a little challenging to, okay, this had a soothing effect. Yeah, really good. Any other thoughts, questions, or reflection? I'd like to get into one more piece of content before break. Is that fine with everyone? If you feel like it's time for break right now and you sure could use that, put your little pinky in the air for me. And I can just kind of get a beat on that. Okay, we're going to continue here for just a few minutes then. So I want to take a moment to talk about a part of the brain that we're really working with each time we practice, and it's called the prefrontal cortex. I'm guessing some of you have heard of the prefrontal cortex in your work and the other areas in life. Yeah. Okay, so the prefrontal cortex is located right up front. You'll probably see me point to it like a million times in the 4 times that we joined together. It is the very last part of the brain to develop in humans. So our early development, the brain kind of develops from the back moving forward. And early development focuses more on things like being able to lift up the head and being able to bring the hand to the mouth and motor skills and different things. So the prefrontal cortex is the last to develop, and it's in charge of decision making, executive function, and my very favorite, emotion regulation. Prefrontal cortex is responsible for decision making, executive function, emotion regulation, and all of the beautiful byproducts of those things. By byproduct, I mean things like our clarity, our ability to discern, our ability to learn new things, our ability to retrieve what we have learned, to remember and retrieve what we have learned. Prefrontal cortex is responsible for all of these things. And the great news is that we are actually able to work with it directly on purpose when we want to. And I want to make sure that I do a good job making a correlation between anchoring awareness in the present moment, and every time we do, this sends blood flow to the prefrontal cortex. Okay, so every time we practice, if you followed the practice that we just did with a sincere heart, you engaged sincerely, that means you sent blood flow to this part of the brain that engages decision making, executive function, emotion regulation. And then it also improves and increases brain health. Pretty cool, right? I mean, how cool is that, that we can do that on purpose? And for the most part, when we get up in the morning and leave for the day, we think that we have these things intact, yeah? And it can take just one low to mid or mid to high grade stress response, and our prefrontal cortex goes offline. Our more primitive functions move forward, and the body by design goes into fight, flight, or worst case scenario, freeze, fawn. And actually now in this work, we also have freeze and appease. which might feel familiar for some of us, right? We've either lived that, we live a little bit of it right now. But again, when we go into low to mid or mid to high grade stress, the prefrontal cortex goes offline. Our more primitive functions move forward. Body by design, biologically, is going into fight, flight, worst case scenario, freeze. Physiologically, what's happening in the body when our system goes into a fight, flight, freeze response, the blood is leaving. I'm going to stand up. I'm just pointing a little bit to my organs. The blood is like leaving all of the organs, rushing to the extremities, preparing us literally to fight or run. We're getting a chemical dump coming from the brain into the body of cortisol, adrenaline, other chemicals that prepare us for this very intense exertion. It's intended for very intense exercise, movement, use of the body. Our vision begins to narrow down in on our perceived threat so that we know where we are in proximity to that threat at all times, thus missing out on all of the other rich information going on in the room. The problem is in our society today that we are going into this fight flight response because we think somebody looked at us funny. Or we get that one email that comes in and we already know what they're going to say, right? I know them. I already know what this is going to be. Yeah. So it's what I'm pointing to in part is how we relate, how we're relating to the world around us. And if there's no true physical threat coming our way and we're still going into that fight flight response, low to mid to high grade stress can induce this. This is, I want to name, not willful. So it's not willful for ourselves when we go into that response. And it's not willful when our students or youth are going into fight, flight, or freeze as well. We'll talk more about that later, but just know that quite often this trauma response is indicative of nervous system health and history. And we can begin to repair our nervous system through practice each day. We'll talk more about that week 2, which is actually in 2 weeks, but our second session here together. So prefrontal cortex, when it's online, decision-making, executive function, emotion regulation, all of the beautiful byproducts of that. We go into a stress response, that prefrontal cortex goes offline, our primitive functions move forward, and it's generally in how we're relating to fill in the blank, whatever's before us. And how I relate and how you relate to different things are going to vary, of course. And I'll give you an example. My husband can walk through the door at the end of a workday, say, "Hey, babe, what sounds good for dinner?" And I'm thinking, I don't know who you think you are. I work all day too. And if you were that damn hungry, you should have had lunch. But I have to act like I've got a dinner plan. Same man can walk in the same door, ask the exact same question to my teenage daughter. "Hey, sis, what sounds good for dinner?" And she'll go, "I don't know, Dad, but when it's ready, call me down." She'll walk up to her bedroom, close the door. She won't think about that question until dinner's on the table. Yeah? So what I'm pointing to is how I'm relating to the question and how sis is relating to the question, 2 totally different things. And meanwhile, while I'm kind of escalating from this question, by the time I'm cleaning up dinner, I'm making sure that the pots and pans are a little bit loud so he knows I'm still not real happy about it. And then guess what happens the next day? Dinner. Yep. So it's funny. I can laugh now, but I do want to also name, I lived this life for a while. So before my practice, this was a true narrative in my mind, and it was all in how I'm relating. Now, I'm not saying we practice meditation and then we become a floor mat because everything's fine. But what I am saying is that through our awareness practice, we can begin to notice how we're relating. Number 1, we can begin to sense and track a physiological response that goes with that. This is our new point of empowerment. And then we can pull out a skillful practice to regulate the nervous system on purpose so that I can engage my executive function and behave from my dignity and my integrity instead of my anger, my judgment, my resentment, and so on. Yeah? Does this make sense? So this is all in how we're relating. And I also want to share that the two main things that we're practicing in the context of our time together, the two main things that we're building skills in at this level is awareness. So it's attentional awareness and self-awareness. And number two is skills to self-regulate, our ability to regulate the nervous system on purpose when we want to. Because if we can get a calming effect in the morning in our own personal practice, great. But man, is it cool to be able to pull it out when the rubber meets the road, when we're out in the world and these things matter the most. Yeah. We want this for ourselves. We want this for the other humans with whom we join. And you can begin to see how it impacts every relationship that we're in. There's no relationship it does not touch. Any thoughts, questions, or reflection? Or yeah, buts. Any yeah, buts?
I guess I do have a yeah, but I didn't think I would. How do you now it I understand that I guess mindset of like changing it, but when I guess there's that point of like when is it okay to do that? When is it okay to let your mind realize like it is okay to go ahead and stop and to go ahead and take this time and reflection when like it has to be on the go 24/7, I guess.
So, Brittany, are you pointing to the fact that you're on the go all the time? And when is it appropriate to take your foot off the gas?
Yes. Like when's it okay to like think it's fine to not go on 24/7, like 365, like 24/7, always on the go, always got to be doing something to make it more productive, like I guess kind of thing. Yeah. Sorry, that's like completely off of whatever you're talking about, but I guess that made me think of
No.
it.
Listen, I relate. Who relates, by the way? Like, wow, for real. So, Brittany, I consider myself a recovering type A. I say that half serious, half in jest. Because we can't go at your age, you can probably do it for a little while still. At my age, if I was still running in a high gear the way that you just described, health, the fallout comes. There's no way, and there's so much science to this in terms of what's going on in the nervous system when we run in high gear like this at all times. In fact, we probably all know someone that has, or maybe even us ourselves, that has had one chronic condition and no one knows why. And we'll look at this later in our series in week 3, or the third time that we join. We'll look at some of the things within the nervous system and what's being impacted when we go in high gear like this. So here, let me try and get a good way to answer this, and I might come around about it in a different angle. When we practice once a day, every day, our nervous system begins to reset and repair. So there is literal repair happening within the fibers of the nervous system when we practice once a day, every day. As we do this, we can still manage a lot, do a lot, but it's not taxing our nervous system so intensely because we're coming back from kind of being in high gear all the time to managing these things with optimal arousal in the system, but it's not a stress response that keeps us going. Does that distinction feel like it makes sense a little bit? Um, I want to also say permission granted right now. I give you permission to not go in high gear all day, every day, and to trust that you will still be quite effective in all the things that you're doing with your students in your home, in your school, in your relationships. I trust that very much. So there's no part of me over time that because I say I'm a recovering type A, I found my practice and I've prioritized my own wellness first so that I can be effective and bring my wellness out into the world. There is no part of me that has become lazy because of it, or less productive, or less effective, or less contributing. If anything, my contributions are far more meaningful. Does that make sense and feel right? So I definitely grant full permission to you right now to notice these moments where you feel like you are just not giving yourself a minute. And this is another good, and Brittany is not a plant in the room, but it's another great time for me to say, and if you do adopt a practice for once a day, every day in the beginning, just 3 to 5 minutes to start with, you will begin to get this felt sense of security in the nervous system, and then you will be able to call up that regulatory effect in your system more easily while you're out in the world and need it most. Does that feel true? So it's just like if I wanted to be a great tennis player, I couldn't read about tennis, go to a couple of workshops or trainings, and then come out and be a great tennis player, right? I'd have to, get to the court, practice my serves. I don't know tennis language, so it's probably not a great example. But the point is, I would have to my body would physically have to be practicing this so that when I went out to play, I had some skill in it. This is very, very similar. We're training ourselves to grow in our own self-awareness, number one, so know when it's escalating. And then number two, that's our point of empowerment, then to be able to induce a regulatory effect in our nervous system when we want to on purpose. And I had a private client say to me one time, wow, that sounds like a superpower. I said, it is, and you're about to have it. So this is what we're talking about here. We're talking about the ability to get our footing right now on command when we want it and need it the most. But I'm gonna encourage you to, I'll say this right now. I'm ultimately gonna encourage each of you to consider, with whatever maturity you have to consider this, a practice once a day, every day for 30 days. And I'll help guide you with the tools for that. But if after 30 days you feel like, you know what, no thanks, I don't feel any change in my life, I don't feel any benefits from that, then you can scratch it, do what you want. But 30 days gives your nervous system a great opportunity to really begin to feel and detect what those benefits are for you, both in your health and wellness, and then also in relationships and the things that you take on. And thank you for asking the question. I'll tell you something else that came out of my time with educators over the summer. Actually, every time I join with them, you are all in it for the right reasons. You guys care so damn much about your work, probably more than any other profession that I could think of. Care more about your actual work. Yeah. Yeah. I also have gone into wellness PDs for staff, and the first 3 questions in the room were about how to get this material to their students, which is admirable. I respect it. I'm sure it's crossed all your minds at some point, or maybe some of your minds. But my point is, bypassing yourself is the norm, right? You're used to thinking about your students and your kids first. And really, this is an invitation back to our own wellness, back to cultivating what can feel well, be well, keep our footing, be our best for ourselves right now. And student wellness is incredibly important. So I'm not diminishing that at all, but quite often it's been at the expense of school professionals, right? Like it's them, us later, or not at all. I know since 2020, we've gotten a lot more airtime on wellness, but in general, it's always been student wellness and sometimes at the expense of staff wellness. So I love that everyone's here right now, and I hope and trust that you're here for your own personal wellness too. Okay, any thoughts, any other thoughts or question or reflection? It is the 1 hour mark. I said earlier, I don't want anyone to have to sit for more than an hour. So this is a great time to take a 5-minute break. My clock says 5:03. I want everybody to take 5 minutes right now. And during that time, whatever you do to replenish, stretch, water, restroom, whatever that might be, come back at 5:08 and I'll be here. Okay, it is 5:08, so I am going to go ahead and get started here. We do have a few more things to get through. And um, I want to share one more thing about the prefrontal cortex. I shared earlier that it is the last part of the brain to develop in humans. They used to think that the prefrontal cortex was fully developed by our late teens. And then they said, no, 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 it's not really completely developed until our early 20s. And then they said, no, 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 it's not even developed by our early 20s. It's not fully developed until our mid 20s. And so here's what this means for youth. Kids are not able to self-regulate on their own because the development of their brain, the architecture of their brain is not such that that's available to them. This means that they are borrowing on the nervous system of the adults they spend the most time with. In the home, that's 1 to 3 people, and in schools, it's all of you, all of us. So this sense of regulation in the nervous system, kids don't just need adults, kids require regulated adults. Number one, for brain development. So this is how their brain is developing as well. They're developing from the nervous systems of the humans they spend the most time with, the adults they spend the most time with. Now, when I learned this information, my kids were very young and I thought, oh my gosh, the Wixies are screwed. Like my kids are done. Like what's happening? And I promise wherever we are today, today's the day. So we're good. And kids are resilient. We know that too. My kids are fine. They both have their own personal practice now. Sometimes they're very committed to it daily. Sometimes they fall out of it. They feel it, pay for it, get back into it. The point is they have the skill. So that's what feels important to me. And kids are resilient. So don't worry too much about the past, right? Right now, we're here to say, okay, what can I do, number one, for myself that I may then offer for kids to feel a sense of regulation when they're with me? And not only are kids attuning to us as adults, but as adults together, we are co-regulating at all times too. So adults are co-regulating. Have you ever been with someone that just feels good to be with? You spend an hour with them, you leave, you feel like, oh my gosh, it's so good to see them. Man, I love them. It feels so good. We should do that more often. You write them, you're like, oh my gosh, it was so good to see you. I want to do that more often. Love you, miss you already. Have you ever been with someone that you don't have any real problem with, but you spend an hour and you leave and you need a shower and a nap? You're like, oh my gosh, what just happened? Exhausted, no real, yep, Jen, energy vampires. So I'm not saying this is good or bad, but I am saying that this is very likely in part the condition of the nervous system. And here's the good news. The more we practice once a day, every day, the more we strengthen our own nervous system health, the less susceptible we are to kind of get sucked into that. And tell you a very quick story. I had a client, this was in my past life, past profession. I had never met him before. He was always very good to me, very kind man. I walk in, we spend 1 hour meeting. I leave like my whole world was rocked. Like, what the heck just happened? He was kind to me. It wasn't a matter of kindness. It was just like, whoa, like my nervous system was like amped up just by being with him for an hour. I recognized this the next time we had an appointment. I arrived a little bit early. I sat in my car. I drank a little bit of water because water is very healthy for the nervous system. I did a grounding practice, much like what we opened with. And I also down regulated. So we'll talk more about that in our upcoming series, but I could down regulate my system so that I was coming in more down regulated. And then I kept my footing. So when I went in, I squared up with him, gave him the opportunity to feel, sense, and detect me, made eye-to-eye contact so that he could have a felt sense of safety from my system's regulation. Brought him down instead of me up. I don't mean down as a downer. I mean, it brought him down just a little bit instead of wiping me out. And guess what I got later? Got one of those messages. It was so good to see you. Right? Okay, so fool me once. Okay, fool me twice. That's on me. We have this ability to actually offer an embodied, regulated nervous system to other humans if and when we want to on purpose. Does this make sense? Yeah. And over time, when we're practicing once a day, every day, this becomes very, very easy. And your embodiment goes with you when you go. Yeah. Any questions, any thoughts or questions? So our youth is attuning to us at all times when they're having a trauma response. So maybe you have a student once in a while that's kind of, has anybody had a student where they're kind of looking out the window, checked out, they're in the room, but they're not really in the room? Yeah. And you're like, yoo-hoo, hello. Okay, this is not willful. This is their every day. Yep. This is their body's response to when they don't feel safe. It's not intellectual at all. And the reason they don't feel safe isn't necessarily you. I'm not saying that at all. We don't know what's going on in the home conditions. We can be triggered into low to mid to high grade stress response, even by low bass tones. Our inner ear muscle can interpret low bass tone as predator threat. And unfortunately, the majority of our institutions have HVAC that have low bass tone. Hospitals where we're supposed to be doing our healing have this. Definitely school systems and school buildings have this as well. I can go in and kind of feel and sense it almost immediately if that's the case. I have a bathroom fan in my home that my husband loves to keep on to circulate air, and I can feel the stress in my shoulders when this thing is on and I'm near it. Does this make sense? Lots of different things can cause them to go into that stress response, but that trauma response that you're experiencing in them is not a willful act. And so one of the best things that we can be doing when we come across this with them is beginning to notice how we're relating and noticing our own nervous system response, tracking that. We'll get more skilled at tracking this over the course of the next several weeks together. And to the extent that we can, then down regulating or regulating our own system so that we can get in proximity to them in a way that they feel safe in connection with us. Because if we were to say words that don't match how we're feeling, kids are pretty slick, right? So if I'm feeling angry, agitated, irritated, but I'm like, oh, sit down and we'll get started or whatever. That was quite extreme, but they can feel and sense and detect first long before language is ever even in their mix. And we need to make sure that our words match what we're feeling and experiencing so that this is where our trust is built. They can begin to trust what we're saying if what they detect from our nervous system matches with the words that we're saying. And this is for Brittany and for everyone. And we don't have to be perfectly happy and great every day. That's not real life. So we're able to go in and say, hey, I had a really rough morning. I don't know how your morning's been, but I'm going to do a short practice so maybe I feel a little more focused and better. Do you want to do it with me? And maybe just guide them into finding the sensation on the bottom of their feet for 1 minute or whatever. Right. So my point is more the more we can notice our own experience, begin to name it skillfully, kids are going to track that as something that matches up and feel more safe and secure in getting proximity with us. And to get them out of that state where I know it was Jaden that said every day, out of that state where they're checked out or maybe hyper aroused in our class, getting them back into a balanced state in our classroom, that starts with us first. Yeah. Really good. Any thoughts, questions, or reflection on that? Or yeah, buts? Okay. So I want to maybe take a 3-minute breakout right now, if that's okay. And I want you to give serious consideration to number one, do you feel it would be beneficial to practice once a day, every day? And if your answer is yes, what barriers might you bump into and how will you meet them? I want to share that it takes resources to create new habits, and our bodies, by design, preserve resources. This is just our biology. It preserves resources for those moments where we have to do something to save our own lives. We talked about fight, flight earlier. So we might have good intentions to sit down tomorrow morning and practice, but then we see that load of laundry that, oh my gosh, if I just fold that load of laundry and clean up those dishes really quick, you know what? I'll start tomorrow when the house feels good. Right? Or whatever the brain or the body wants to talk you out of, just plan on it being a new practice and your body's going to want to tell you no at first. And really, my best tip for that is sit down anyways, carve out protected time for yourself and do the practice anyways. But I just want you to maybe connect with how many in a breakout room, Beth?
We could
And
do 3 or 4.
okay. Yep.
That's
Let's
good.
do that. Let's just take maybe 4 minutes. Everybody can take 1 minute to talk about one, if they plan to, and then two, what barrier they may run into and how they plan to meet it, or if they can even begin thinking about meeting that challenge to overcome it from the get-go. I think Beth will break us out here, I think.
Okay.
Okay, Beth, I'm going in the one I'm invited to too, okay?
Okay.
I'll see you in a minute.
You hopefully should see an invitation to join a room.
I'm sorry.
Yours, let me see.
My I lost the call and so I got back in, but I was knocked out of the break room.
Okay.
Breakout room.
Did you get an invitation there?
Not yet. Sorry.
Right. Oh, there.
Thank you.
That one out. Okay.
Hi, everyone. I know there's a couple seconds while others will rejoin. Anything uncovered in your rooms? I loved my room, by the way. I loved my room. I loved the people I got to speak with. How did we do?
I think we're still waiting on one room.
Okay.
Oh, here they come.
Here they are.
Okay, beautiful. Hi, everyone. Does anybody want to share any reflection from your time in your breakout?
I know that we talked a lot about like just time and procrastination. And then how it's like we know it's really, really good, but the thing is it's just like making it that important thing to do and putting that more on that. So
Thank you, Brittany. One of the things that is promised as we do a practice that is skillful is we begin to build more capacity in our system, more capacity for new experiences, for more experiences, for joyful experiences, and so on. I treat it like brushing my teeth. Like I would never get up and leave the day without, like, I wake up, brush my teeth, I go to the cushion, so to speak. And that doesn't mean I'm always on a cushion for my practice. It might be standing, it might be in a chair. But the point is, I treat it with that level of importance for sure. Really good. So, really getting committed if that's your wish. I'm not going to take time to talk through tips for setting up successfully for practice. What I'll do is I will put a short video on tips for setting up successfully in our learning space that I shared earlier. Beth, do you want to talk at all about contact hours in our last 2 minutes? And I'm sorry, it's so tight on time.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, we'll send a follow-up message with some of the stuff that Rachel has mentioned, and then a reminder for our next session. And then at the end of the 4 sessions, we'll do the contact hours. We are doing 2 hours for each week to build in that time for practice that Rachel mentioned. So that's added into the contact hours that we're issuing, but you'll get certificates for those those of you that need continuing education credits, you'll get that.
Any questions on that? So, ladies and gentlemen, your homework assignment, to the extent that you are willing, is to practice once a day, every day. Decide what time of day that might be. I recommend mornings. This is when our minds are most open and susceptible for change. Evening is better than not at all. Start small, so I mean 3 to 5 minutes. And in the beginning, you're looking for an anchor to hold your attention to. This is what sends the blood flow to the prefrontal cortex. This is what engages the PFC for emotion regulation, begins to get that reset and repair in the nervous system. Today, we worked with breath, sit bones, bottom of the feet. You can work with any one of those. And then again, there's a library of resources in the space that you'll have access to if you so choose to join. Whew, we covered a lot of ground, y'all. Any thoughts or questions before we close our time together? Is everyone well for the moment? Okay, beautiful. Thank you so much for your practice, for your sincere engagement. And I will stay online here to be available if anybody wishes to hang back for anything. Otherwise, I will see you in 2 weeks. Keep taking good care. Thank you.